Member for Moriarty, you've got the floor.
Thank you, sir. Let's begin with page 13 of Report 8, and we're in relation to the Adelaide Venue Management Corporation. As at the 30th of June 2023, Venue Management has spent... Hang on. I've got to turn to page 30 myself. We're in relation to Cooper's Stadium. So the report says that as at 30th of June, AVMC had spent $42 million of the funding on this project, $3 million remaining. The project's due to finish in 24-25. Can the Minister confirm if the upgrade project will be within budget and the latest update in relation to timing?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Obviously, this is quite an important upgrade for the stadium, enable us to participate in the FIFA Women's World Cup. With the money remaining, the work's yet to be completed, including stadium signage upgrade, and that will be completed in November 2023, so this month, and a pitch replacement scheduled to be completed post the 23-24 A-League season. Works will commence in May with completion of October 24. You asked about additional money. So the original upgrade included a roof over the east stand, additional change room facilities, pitch lighting upgrade, F&B outlet, upgrades, toilet facility refurbishment and improved disability access. AVM has invested a further $8.5 million, of which $6.2 million has been spent on technology and event infrastructure upgrades, including 2 large video replay screens, LED perimeter pitch signage and a public address system.
So in relation to that $8.5 million that the Minister just referred to as being additional expenditure, can the Minister clarify, is that additional on top of the $45 million budget, or is that 8.5 of the $45 million budget was additional investment?
In addition. It's in addition to the $45 million. Obviously, it was quite a long project, so I would guess, I hazard a guess that these improvements were considered necessary as well as that big major upgrade.
Thank you. So the $42 million has been expended and was expended prior to the 30th of June as reported by the Auditor General, and we have achieved what was necessary to have the FIFA Women's World Cup. So there is $3 million further plus the $8.5 million that the Minister has just referred to. That $11.5 million, the Minister is the Minister advising the House that all of the remaining works that she listed will be completed within that $11.5 million budget.
Representing some of what I've said. As I said, 8.5 was an addition of which most of that has been spent already. So 6.2 on tech and event infrastructure upgrades. And there was a carryover submitted to do the LED perimeter pitch signage and public address system. So I think most of those were completed already, these two.
Yes, so most of them.
So there's just the $3 million that's outstanding. Okay, so the only outstanding work is that $3 million that I identified, which is the stadium signage upgrade and the pitch replacement, and a little bit more on the tech and event. I think 1.3 if my maths is correct.
Thank you, Minister. Can I clarify an earlier question then? Do I take it that the $8.5 million that the AVMC chose to invest, is that captured within the $45 million that the Auditor General has described? So the total budget for the program then is $53.5 million, or is the $8.5 million a completely separate figure?
No, this is completely separate. Obviously, I remember, I guess, lobbying the previous government at the time that how important it was to help the upgrade, the $45 million, which would make us eligible to participate in the FIFA Women's World Cup. The 8.5 that I've talked about is completely separate to that.
Okay, so I'll go back to my initial question then. $3 million remains to be spent out of the project that I was asking about. What's that for, and when will it be completed by?
Just to reiterate, that remaining money is for stadium signage, and that will be completed this month. And the pitch replacement will be completed post the 23-24 A-League season, expected completion in October 2024.
Going to the independent auditor's report in the Adelaide Venue Management Corporation on page 7, there's an increase of $162,000 for remuneration of key management personnel. Can the Minister identify what that's for? This is the independent auditor's report, which is one of the annexures to the document we're looking at. Page 7 for the AVMC audit report.
It doesn't appear we have a copy of that, but happy for you to proceed with questions again, if you'd like to repeat that.
The Minister can take my word for it that the total compensation for key management personnel is listed as $1.842 million in 2022 and $2,400,000 in 2023, an increase of $162,000. Just wondering what that comprises.
I think when it talks about key management personnel, as I'm advised, includes the board, the chief executive officer and the executive team. And then you spoke about that total compensation. It excludes salaries and other benefits and salaries and other short-term employee benefits, which is what it relates to.
I'm happy to have a question taken on notice if the Minister prefers, but I'm interested to know why the significant increase there.
Can you just repeat your question?
Described several times that there's a significant increase in the money, and I'm interested in what comprises the increase.
I think what we'll do is take it in full on notice, but I understand there was a movement in one of the positions. The Chief Financial Officer became the Chief Governance Officer and was paid additional money, but as well as the CFO. So there was 2 significant staff changes that made that go up, but we'll also come back to you and take it on notice to reflect if there's any other changes that need to be included.
Thank you very much. Also on page 7, and it goes over onto page 8, it talks about the members of the board. It appears that there are 2 extra board members. There are 2 board members whose terms ceased on the 31st of January, and there's 3 actually, including the Deputy Chair, and they were all replaced. And then the 2 normal board members who ceased on that day were replaced by 4 new board members who started the following day: Jodie Glass, Ian Horn, Penelope Lyon and Gretchen Richards. Can the Minister identify the process that was undergone to identify the 4 board members? Skills matrices applied or advertising? What was the process for choosing those 4 members?
Well, certainly, as a minister, I was looking at the opportunities for that board and the different parts of AVM. I mean, obviously, it is our convention centre, it's our entertainment centre, and of course, Cooper's Stadium as well. Looking for a diversity of experiences. The people who did come onto the board have a diversity of experience in tourism and hospitality, arts community, and of course business conferences as well. So we're looking for a mix of skills and experiences, and that's what we have.
So was this process managed entirely within the Minister's office?
Yes.
And was there any consultation undertaken with either the executive team or the existing board of AVMC in identifying who the new board members would be?
If I recall accurately, I had some conversations with the chair of AVM at that time, and some discussions about the diversities, the skills and experience within the board.
Was this an application process or direct approach from the Minister to the people involved?
To be honest, I'm going to have to take that on notice. I have to recall the process. I know that my focus was entirely about the skills and experience of the board and the diversity of those skills and experience. And just in relation to the Minister having taken that on notice, she might also, if willing, the 3 members who were not reappointed on that occasion, I'd be interested to know if any of them had applied, if there was any particular reason why they weren't re-endorsed. Do you recall that there were current members who indicated they didn't want to continue, but I think it's best I provide that information on notice.
Thank you very much. If we go to, still in the independent auditor's report, but specifically within the letter provided to the chair of the board, it talks about the role of the acting chief executive officer in assessing the entity's ability to continue as a going concern, taking into account policy and funding decisions, and also the acting chief executive officer being responsible for disclosing as applicable matters related to going concern, using the going concern basis of accounting unless the assessment indicates that it's not appropriate. Clearly, the acting chief executive officer has a very important role in engaging with the Auditor General in the preparation of this report. Noting, I think, that the acting chief executive officer would have been appointed, I think, this financial year, not last financial year, so it must have been quite late to the process. Is the Minister able to outline how far into the engagement with the Auditor General the previous Chief Executive Officer was? Is the Acting Chief Executive Officer in a position to have been able to sign off on everything in relation to this audit?
Well, of course he was. He's a senior member of the team and was very much across the brief, and that's why Mr Martin Radcliffe is the Acting Chief Executive Officer. And I couldn't answer entirely how far one had gone and the other, but I have no concerns at all of the ability to have these audit reports signed off.
Is the Minister able to advise what the plan is for a permanent CEO, or has the Acting Chief Executive Officer already been appointed permanently, or is that process still underway?
This is a decision of the board. I understand that they are undergoing that recruitment process right now.
In relation to engagements between the decision that was taken to ban Melbourne supporters from the site, is the Minister able to advise what conversations she had, if any, with the previous Chief Executive Officer prior to the decision being taken.
I don't think this has any relevance at all to the Auditor General's report.
So is that the ruling, sir?
That's a ruling, yes.
Right. In the interest of time, I'll move on. Yes, let's go to SATC. Thank you very much.
And for Morialta.
Thank you. In relation to page 413 of the larger document, the income, the identification income rose significantly to $135 million as a result of increases in appropriations, SA government grants. The main drivers were major new tourism marketing initiatives on the one hand, and secondly, money received from the Department of Premier and Cabinet's Major Events Fund. So it's in relation to that money received from the Major Events Fund for new, ongoing and expanded sponsored and managed events. Is the Minister able to provide an exact figure of funding received from Department of Premier and Cabinet's Major Events Fund?
That would be $34.1 million.
Is the Minister able to provide a breakdown for new, ongoing and/or expanded sponsored and managed events, what the $34.1 million is comprised of?
No, that's commercially in confidence.
Are each of the payments from the Premier's Major Events Fund singularly and individually, are each of them commercial in confidence?
Yeah. Yes, perhaps I could go and talk a little bit more at length about the important work we do with these major events. Of course, coming to government, this is a key part of our election priorities, and we added $40 million over 4 years for major events. So the role of South Australian Tourism Commission, we have the South Australian Tourism Commission owned and managed events, such as Santa's Tour Down Under, Tasting Australia presented by RAA Travel, and of course the National Pharmacy's Christmas pageant. What is been slightly different with these new events that have come on, such as Live Golf Adelaide and the AFL Gather Round, they are SATC-sponsored events with a component of marketing, event delivery and city dressing that is managed by the SATC. Now, of course, there's many other events that we fill out their calendar with, like the Adelaide International, WOME Adelaide, the Adelaide Equestrian Festival, Illuminate Adelaide, Harvest Rock and the Freddie and Diego Love and Revolution that are SATC-sponsored events. And then, of course, you've got the NRL Ampol State of Origin, which is an SATC-sponsored event with a component of city dressing managed by the SATC. So there's a combination of the way we support events and that we manage these events. The details of sponsorship payments are subject to contractual confidentiality restrictions and therefore cannot be disclosed.
How many events was the SATC provided funding from the Major Events Fund to help run?
Obviously, we've seen the cost of events increase quite substantially. So in order to maintain some of our events and bring on new events, we saw a variety of those events supported, such as Tasting Australia, the Tour Down Under, which we brought back in its traditional format, had some additional support, of course, Live Golf and AFL Gather, and Harvest Rock as well. We are always in continuous conversation about how we present new events, but also keep fresh those events that are much loved by South Australians, also those ones that attract interstate guests as well. So I think that's one of the key things with that additional funding that came in under the election that's enabled us to continue to have that growth. As I say, more people are talking about South Australia in the last year than a decade. Major events are a great catalyst for people to book and come to Adelaide. Of course, marketing is just as important, and that's something we pride ourselves on as well. But of course, this is something that we continue to work together as a team, and we've really been pleased with what we've been able to deliver.
The Minister has identified Live Golf and Gather Round, and then separately the Tour Down Under in relation to funding from the Major Events Fund towards the SATC. I wonder if I can ask, is it possible to express using a number how many events the Major Events Fund has supported SATC to deliver?
Already detailed those.
With respect, Minister, you have not, unless the number is 3, because I've counted AFL Gather Round and, 4, because AFL Gather Round, Live Golf, Harvest Rock and Tour Down Under, I think we've heard specifically referenced as being major events funding towards SATC. Are there any other events in addition to those 4 that have been sponsored or supported by grants from the Major Events Fund towards the SATC?
Okay, so I stand by my previous answer for events in 22-23. We have had additional events announced but weren't part of that financial year.
How many additional events?
Not part of that financial year that we're talking about today.
The answer you were looking for, Member from Auditor, was 4.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair. That was my guess, but I appreciate your support. In relation to these events, is the Minister able to identify whether there is a process that SATC has input into as to how that funding is apportioned? For example, does the SATC seek funding from the Major Events Fund having gone through its own internal processes, or is the Major Events Fund a procurer of services from the SATC?
The Major Events Fund sits within the Department of Premier and Cabinet. Ultimately, any significant event the state wishes to pursue will be funded through the Major Events Fund. SATC meets regularly with DPC to ensure information is shared. There is a strong level of coordination and collaboration between SATC and DPC. So that means we're both working together to bolster the state's events calendar to deliver outcomes for our state. The SA Tourism Commission, with the great depth of experience in this area, does undertake the analysis of event opportunities, makes recommendation and manages the event contracts. Obviously, a key part of the role that we play is the strategic approach to the development of our state's event calendar. So we're trying to complement that core listing of our regularly occurred, managed and sponsored events by securing those additional new events to ensure a balanced calendar across the year. The role of SATC means that it submits bids and negotiates directly with promoters to secure new events, and it focuses on events which will generate significant benefits for the state, contribute to our brand position, generate media coverage and visitation from national and international markets. And of course, one of our strengths as a state has been, being the festival state, a key part of our DNA. But we're also looking at music, food and wine, of course, the cycling, Tour Down Under. Next year, the year after next, we'll celebrate 25 years. We look at those mass participation events and one-off national and international events. So what we're always looking for is a mix of drivers for people to book and come into the city. But of course, just on Saturday we'll be having the National Pharmacies Christmas Pageant, which is a free event, as is the Santos Tour Down Under, for people to come along. So it's a mixture of ticketed and free events.
In relation specifically and only to events funded by the Major Events Fund, I've got a couple of questions. Can I clarify, in relation to the AFL Gather Round, expense borne by the SATC, were that entirely met by the grant from Major Events, or was there other expenditure that SATC chose to spend itself?
I think that would be a question best directed to the Premier, who is responsible for the Major Events Fund.
Well, with respect, Minister, my question was specifically, I'll put it a different way, did SATC expend any funds over and above those it was granted from the Major Events Fund on the Gather Round?
That's not my understanding. As I said, it was a sponsored event, and we did the marketing, event delivery, city dressing, managed by the South Australian Government, but that is how it was supported. And going forward, of course, that's how major events will be funded. There was a significant change, but of course, these major events don't happen very quickly. They have a long plan period, although I have to say Liv and AFL was rather quick to turn around. And of course, it was such a successful experience as well. And we were so thrilled when the AFL signed on for the next 3 seasons, 24, 25 and 26. So we worked incredibly hard to turn it around. It was an excellent event to have at Mount Barker and, of course, in Norwood as well. Well, I answered that already. But, of course, yes, but I give the chance to talk about what was an excellent event and talk about the other roles that we played.
Auditor, can you please leave the commentary to yourself?
Sir, I will seek a point of order next time.
We can do that.
In relation to these events, can I ask if their management of them on behalf of the Major Events Fund is done by the SATC? Can the Minister provide any information about how many tickets were given away for free to each of the 4 events, Live, Tour Down Under, or less so Tour Down Under if it's free, AFL Gather Round and Harvest Rock, by ministers or the Premier?
In relation to AFL Gather Round, the AFL is the owner and the promoter of the AFL Gather Round and therefore is responsible for ticketing. In what was a generous gesture from the AFL, tickets were free to club members to games involving their clubs. Beyond that, as we understand it, tickets were sold to the general public or issued in line with commercial partnerships. The state received ticketing as part of the partnership with the AFL, and I understand the ticketing was used primarily for business purposes and key stakeholders. In regards to Live Golf, as the SATC is not the event owner or promoter, you have to ask that those questions would have to be answered by Live Golf. Well, it's a very similar situation. It's owned by Sydney Sounds. They're the promoter of the event. Where there are tickets that the state received, they'll be used for key stakeholders.
In relation to Harvest Rock, can the Minister explain a ticket apparently given to someone called Alice, who's on Twitter, now known as X, as @Alice_Rose with a 0 as the R, who asked the Premier for tickets to Harvest Rock, and the Premier replied, "Private message me your email address and I will get you some tickets." Under what state government policy were those tickets provided?
Are you referring to Harvest Rock in 2022?
I'm referring to the one on the weekend where Alice asked for a ticket, apparently was given them, was very excited by the process, and raised interest from a number of other people wondering how they can get tickets, as I'm sure many people in South Australia are also wondering.
Thank you so much for that question.
Right. You're referring to an event which took place when?
Well, the event may have been recently, sir, but the funding, was provided by the Major Events Fund to SATC in the financial year in question.
Member from Marialto, you're getting very close. Right. You will answer my questions too. My question is, you're referring to an event which took place when? As far as you know. As far as you know.
The event took place last weekend. It was funded, I believe, during the period for which the report is in question.
Right. You can ask a question about how that money was expended during the period, not beyond the period. Anyway, the time's expired. Next Minister.